Welcome back to Tiny Grimes Set 3 Initial Impressions. This is my initial review of these cards, and do bear in mind that these reviews are based on their value in constructed play, unless otherwise noted. Alright, let's start with Istekkhan of Auratech. This guy has so much text. I've never seen a card with so much text. I don't know what to make of this card. He clearly has a high upside, and that his body is reasonable and can become even better with stuff like Frost and all these other cards. I don't really know what to make of him. I like the fact that these little pops are not level gated, but I don't like the fact that you have to have them in your deck. I feel like the Soulbind mechanic is something I need to play more before I can get a full understanding of the value of this card. My initial impression is I don't want a 39 card deck to play 3 Istekkans. Now, I may be totally dead wrong on that. I may decide later, oh my goodness, having all of these little cards in here that more easily allow me to turn my Istekkhan into something great is exactly what I want. So we'll have to see. My initial thoughts are, as someone who strives for consistent decks rather than having more powerful cards but a more chancier chance to draw them, I tend to shy away from a card like this. However, I may be dead wrong and it may be amazing. Frostmain Dragon is another really interesting new Tempys card. Both of the legendaries are very interesting. At a 5/6 mobility 2, 9/11 mobility 2, he's good. He's not amazing, but he's good. He doesn't fulfill a very good role as an underdrop, but he's not a bad card to have on the board, moving around doing damage, especially if you're able to buff him somehow. And he has this very interesting Phoenix-like mechanic, where when he comes into play, if he sticks around, he hatches this egg, or he lays this egg, and then when you rank up, you get another under-leveled version of him. So my thought is he is good. People will play him for sure in the beginning. The question is going to be, will he stick in any of the decks he fits in? Will he stick in a mobility deck, or will he just barely get squeezed out? And the same thing with just a regular NT deck. I feel like he's that card that's going to be right on the cusp of making these decks. You know, what kind of role are you looking for? The reason why Phoenix rarely gets squeezed out is because it fulfills that role of being both an underdrop that's amazing, a level 1 card that's amazing and pushes through damage, and a card with a bonkers upside. So the question becomes, does this card have a role in these decks? And I really don't know. It's certainly a good card. The question becomes, does it have a great role in the meta? All right, Auratech Warhammer is amazing. I really don't know how to describe this otherwise. He is really great. He's going to be one of the anchors of the Aloyan Tempys archetype, in which you're going to have cards that probably buff him anyway. It's very hard to stop his trigger. It's hard to both put a guy in front of him and on both sides of him, and even harder if they're playing cards that do tricky things to move stuff around. So basically, he is going to let you make plays like play 3 dragon eggs and just level them through the Warhammer. So he could potentially get 2 triggers off since he's a 3/8. So he's very strong. I think we're going to see a lot of him in constructed. Hammerfang, I don't see the deck he fits in is the problem. He does not fit well into a Yeti deck because you don't really want to run away from stuff, I don't think. He doesn't fit that great in a beatdown deck because his stats aren't good enough. Like if he was a 7/4 or something, he would easily fit in one of those types of decks. So I don't think he'll see play, but maybe someone will find a use for him. Frostmain Maiden is this card that could be really amazing, or it could be a trap card. I'm tempted to say it's somewhere in between, and that it's a good card in a mobility deck. The question becomes, are there enough new good mobility cards that make mobility a viable deck type? And I'm not sure on that. Think about Stormbringer, though. Stormbringer now is just death on wheels. It bounces around on level 1 and does 5 damage every time it moves into a lane if this card is out with the Stormbringer. So, is it going to have a role? Most likely. It'll be a fairly limited role, though. Runestone Primordial. I don't think it sees play in Constructed. I mean, there's a chance it sees play in some sort of aggro deck, but I don't think so. I think just a Korok would be better than this card. I don't think consistency or consistent is enough to put it up. Auratech Battlebrand, along with cards like Aetherphage, is the meta-shaping card. This card is just amazing. It kills Gox. Gox didn't have an answer before. It kills Deathweaver, who didn't have an answer before. Oh, and guess what? If you're playing it with a Loyan also, now you get to discard a card and level it. This card might even be worth playing outside of a Loyan, just as a card instead of Cull or Dreadbolt, because it generally kills the guys those two cards are trying to kill anyway. So just imagine how insane it's going to be in a Loyan. I can tell you for sure I will be playing Tempys Loyan quite a bit. Herald of Destruction is basically what we hoped Justicar would be. This card is going to see constructed play as long as the metagame keeps having cards like Deathweaver. It's going to be a card that probably comes in and out of the metagame as a reaction, like Plants, Deathweaver, these kind of things. This card crushes them pretty hard. If those cards filter out of the metagame, then his stats aren't quite good enough to make him see play. But he is a critical part of the metagame, regardless of whether he's played or not. Just his existence is phenomenal. It's very important. Burnout is great. Doing 8 damage is just phenomenal. It gives NT another tool. And if you think about it this way, one of the problems NT Control has is this. On player level 3 and 2, it has to draw those dragons and whatever other cards it's put all its energy into. I don't know if Zemus is going to be that card anymore. I almost said Zemus, but maybe not. And Burnout helps you both control the board early to be able to get there more intact, and whittles your deck down to make it more likely that you're drawing those dragons. So I think Burnout is going to have a very serious impact on the metagame. Definitely an NT Control. I'm guessing we'll see it all over the place. Seal of Cadrus is interesting. I could see this potentially in some sort of like Stasis Warden deck. I think it would be very good in that deck. It gives you that win condition much earlier than you used to have. If you can cheat it in with all kinds of different cards, Aetherforge, Oracle, it could actually have a role in Constructed in just an AT deck, because there's going to be so many leveling mechanics now with Oracle and Warhammer. And since it has consistent, you're going to see it in player level 3. You level 2 of these, you get to 4.2 with Goxes on the board. That's 100 damage. I mean, Seal of Cadrus could see play. I'm not saying it will, but I'm saying it. There's that nagging feeling telling me maybe now there's some spell stall deck that's legit. Problem is Aetherphage exists, and if this becomes big, people are going to go, oh, Aetherphage every deck. Womp womp. All right, Colossus. It's a draft card. It's not constructed playable. Tempys has tons of better underlevel drops that they would play rather than him. Flame Rift Instigator is amazing. I really like this card. He allows for a new archetype. I don't think it's a tier 1 archetype, but essentially what you now have the ability to do is play cards like the new Guardian from Aloyan, Steel Scale Dragon, the Crucible Colossus. He basically comes in, removes their defender, and he comes in such a way where he probably removes something. At 7/2, he's trading. So he's trading and making one of your other creatures amazing. I really think this has the potential for its own archetype. I don't know if it's going to be tier 1. Probably not. Cragwalker, bad card. Not even that great in draft, I don't think. I think it's okay in draft. I think it's pretty terrible in constructed, unless some metagame develops in which they really need one more mobile beatdown card, but it dies so easily. I just don't see it happening. Cinderbone Barbarian, one of the underdrops. I really like all of these underdrops. I wonder if Tempys doesn't need him as much as other factions. Getting a 3/3 body to do 6, basically you are going to help kill somebody and then he just gets eaten. So my thought is he might see play, he might not. He's one of the underdrops that just might not see play. And last, the Borean Stormweaver. He's a very interesting card. The problem is he's an activate that's kind of minimal, but his body gets pretty decent. So I could definitely see him having a chance in Constructed. I see him being very, very strong in draft. I don't see a deck doesn't just pop out at me that he fits into perfectly, because although his body gets giant, his damage is somewhat irrelevant. I mean, it's decent at 4, but it's not earth-shattering. So I don't know. Someone will try him in Constructed, and if he fits in the meta, he fits. He's certainly not going to define the meta, but he may find a niche spot in the meta. All right, guys, that wraps up my first impressions of Tempys. Look around on YouTube on my channel for the other 3 factions, as they will all be up. So hope you guys are enjoying set 3 as much as I am.